Let's take a look at determinants in Cramer's rule. X is given by this expression here. Y is given by this expression here. And if we know how to read this, this is 4x minus 3y equals 5. And the other equation is 5x plus 6y equals 16. So this is how we can come up with these two equations right from the determinant version of this. Now if we solve in the normal manner, we're going to have to multiply equation 1 here by 2 to get this equation here, and then we can add these two. So 8 and 5 is 13x, and these add to 0, and then we get 26, and we can see easily that x is equal to 2. If we substitute 2 into the first equation, 4 times 2 minus 3y equals 5, we end up with y is equal to 1. And so our solution is x equals 2 and y equals 1. Now straight from the determinant for x, we can multiply 5 times 6, which is 30. We can subtract then 16 times 3, which is 48. So when we subtract a negative, we get a positive. And then we can put that over 4 times 6, which is 24. Subtract 5 times 3, which is plus 15. And again, we're going to get that x is equal to 2. By multiplying 4 times 16 and subtracting 25 and putting it over the same denominator as we had before, y equals 64 minus 25 over 39, or 39 over 39, which means y is equal to 1. Now if you remember, 5x plus 6y equals 16 is really a line, as is 4x minus 3y equals 5 is a line. And when we take a look at the solution for these, x equals 2 and y equals 1, this is x equals 2 here and y equals 1 here. So this is where the two lines intersect. If there is no solution to these two linear equations and two unknowns, then the lines are parallel and there is no solution. We've also been factoring quadratic expressions, and this is a quadratic trinomial. And we can turn this quadratic expression into a quadratic equation just by setting it equal to 0. And if we do, this generic solution here is what we can use, where we got x is equal to minus b plus or minus the root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and it will give us two solutions which will become our factors. You may also recall that if a quadratic trinomial is factorable, square root of b squared minus 4ac will be an integer. Now if we work this down, we're going to see that x is equal to minus 3 plus or minus 5 all over 4. And what this means is that if we put in these values, we're going to see that x is either minus 2 or x is equal to 1/2. Now if this is x is equal to minus 2, to make it equal 0, we're going to have to add 2 to both sides. So x plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 1/2 is equal to 0. So our factors become x plus 2 times x minus 1/2. But if we want it to be the original, we have to multiply by 2. And when we do that, we can leave this term alone and factor through 2 on this one to get the factors that we had before, x plus 2 times 2x minus 1. If we want a graphic interpretation of this equation, such as the linear equations and two unknowns, if we were to plot 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 0, we would get this diagram here. Now the solution, as we saw, was x equals minus 2 and x equals 1/2. You can see here that x is 1/2 here, and x equals minus 2 is this value here. So this is the graphical interpretation of what we're going to be doing later. Let's take a look at another quadratic expression that we're going to turn into a quadratic equation. And again, we're going to take x equals minus b plus or minus the root of b squared minus 4ac to solve this. And if we substitute in our values, we are going to get that x is equal to 10 plus or minus 2 over 8. Or when we look at our solution, we got x equals 12 over 8, or x is equal to 8 over 8, which is 1. So we can say that x minus 12 over 8 is 0, x minus 1 is 0, and if we put these in here as our factors, x minus 12 over 8 times x minus 1, to get back the original equation, we have to multiply by 4. So this becomes 4x minus 6 times x minus 1. These are the factors you come up with using a different method. Again, let's take a look at converting this quadratic expression into a quadratic equation. And if we apply the solution for that generic trinomial equation, we're going to end up with minus 6 plus or minus, now if we work this out, this is 36 minus 36, so this is minus 6 plus or minus 0. Thing of x equals minus 3, so that's x plus 3 equals 0. And that will be both of our terms here, because what we found is we have a perfect square. So x plus 3 squared is the solution for this factoring of our quadratic trinomial. Let's try this technique one last time. And again, we're going to use x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. We're going to come up with x equals minus 7 plus or minus 5 over 6. And if we do, we're going to find that x equals minus 12 over 6, which is minus 2, or x is equal to minus 2 over 6. Now if we write that x equals minus 2, we can say x plus 2 equals 0, and that's what we need again to put into here. And the same thing for here, because this is minus 1/3 becomes x plus 1/3. And again, to get back the original one, we have to multiply through by 3, which gives us our factor that we originally came up with, which is x plus 2 times 3x plus 1.